Greetings, friends of the Great Second Advent Movement. Welcome to the Present Truth Studies YouTube channel. I'm your host, once again, Brother Eric, and we're here today, Tuesday, July 8th, with another exciting report of what's happening out on the street in the General Conference session held in St. Louis, Missouri. Oh boy, definitely a lot of excitement, a lot of discussion, a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration. You get that from other YouTube channels and websites, Advent Messenger, Adventist Media Connect. They're on the inside. They got press passes, so they're reporting there on the inside. Had a lot of frustration because of church leaders failing to deal with critical issues in the church. However, you can check out them for those reports, but we're here to report about what's happening on the street. The present truth to solve some of these long-standing controversies. For example, prophecy regarding the Middle East, Jerusalem in the latter days, King of the North, and so forth. So we're going to give you an update here. Today, I also take a moment for those of you that aren't there to pray for the session, for everybody involved, that God's Spirit will be there and manifest so that people can be awakened to get this extra oil to save the church from its Laodicean slumber, those that have ears to hear and eyes to see, that they can be open to this. So we're going to go in and look at the layout here. This is a map, an overview, what they call it a bird's eye view of that area where all the action is. You've got the America Center. This is in downtown St. Louis. America Center, that's where the exhibition area is. A lot of action there. And then next to it, the America's Dome. That's the football stadium. That's where the session business takes place. So accessing that, there's obviously parking structures, a lot of people coming in and out. So we're going to zoom in here. On the Sabbath, we mentioned that we had some brethren stand out with a set of charts out in the front of this thing. If you come down here, the front of the American Center, it's kind of obscured by two large, tall buildings, skyscrapers. But here are some of the big hotels, the Marriott and the Magnolia, where a lot of the big shots, the delegates and leaders are staying at big expense, but when they go to and fro during their lunch breaks, because they seem to be very concerned about being on time so they can get supper, you see that come up in some of the business discussions. But at any rate, they will go across the street into the America Center. This is their main pathway. So we were out there on the Sabbath, and that's where we had the interaction with the man that somebody in the comments ID'd him. It appears that he works for Amazing Facts. Maybe he's an evangelist. So whoever sent him here, maybe one of the leaders of Amazing Facts, well, why don't you go out in the street and do it yourself? But at any rate, that's where that took place. At the front of the America Center, that's where a lot of, like I say, delegates go in and out. You can see them usually wearing badges. However, come Sunday, we relocated, and if you look at this complex, you see it's kind of has this dog leg, this L shape. And at the corner of that, you see this like 3/4 of a circle. That is a major entrance. Okay, so on the Sabbath, buses will come in and people will unload, and so there's a lot of activity, people going in and out. That's at the junction between the America's Dome, the stadium, and then the convention complex. So I recommended that I'm going to zoom in on that. You can see one of the parking structures there. But I said, hey, go sit up here. The streets are North 7th and Convention Plaza, where that intersection is. So what the brethren did, they did in ignorance. God winked at it. But they set up right along the sidewalk of that Convention Plaza. And they didn't realize that is territory that's rented, okay, at big expense. And Is it? So they went there and set up their setup, and I'll show you here in a second. But later, and they got a lot of traction. God kind of blessed. A lot of people came by. They were able to hand out a lot of literature right in this area there. But then soon somebody reported it, and then the police came and said, "Oh, you can't set up here." And they were very polite and cordial, and they said, "Oh, okay, well, can we set up? Exercise free speech, First Amendment." And they said, "Oh, well, you can just go across the street." So the police directed them there, said, "Thank you." So they packed up the tables, and they moved right across the street. And you'll see there's a parking structure with a black fence, but you see those 3 trees, which is a beautiful place because it's shaded. So they set up along there, and I'm going to show you some pictures of that. And this is where all the action has been taking place. Sunday afternoon, and then yesterday, and of course today. They are right down there today. So this is the place. Please feel free to stop by and have a discussion, talk with him. So that's the territory. What I'm going to do now is show you a couple pictures of the setup, and then some of the experiences they've had. They are so excited when we talk at the end of the day about the interactions, people coming by, asking questions, taking literature, and so forth. So we're going to go over here, jump over to a PowerPoint, and look at a few pictures. So this slide is showing the area where they first set up. And you can see kind of the brick red. That is part of that complex. So legally, because the conference is leasing this property for their business, the session, you can't set up there. Okay, so no problem. You just go across the street and set up. So that's the place that they initially set up. But even though they were there for a short while, they had a lot of traffic and they handed out literature. But the interaction with the local authorities was no problem. They were polite and cordial. And certainly with the law of the land, they cannot stop what you call legitimate free exercise of free speech and religion, as long as the Bill of Rights still exists. So you just relocate, go across the street. So here is the setup showing you across the street under those trees. They set up the table, they had the charts and these posters, these sandwich boards. And so this is where, as people are coming in, or the session, business session in the morning, it breaks at noon. And then they have a 2-hour lunch break. So in that period, there's a lot of people milling around. Also people in the exhibition area, a lot of people in that. So a lot of opportunity for interaction. So this is the place. On the left, you see there the brother getting ready to lay out literature. On the right, you see the layout, the poster boards as people are going by. And what they said is they see these posters, and I'm going to do a close-up of some of them, but they're questions about King of the North, King of the South, which is a very hot topic. That one's engendered a lot of activity, and as people go by, even if they don't want to look at it because they've been prejudiced, they can't resist to look and stop, okay, or glance at it, and it's an opportunity to approach them. There's another one on 1888 message being rejected and coming back 40 years later. There's one on Revelation 14. Of course, that's the call. Be bold, proclaim the 3 angels' message. So, well, what are the 3 angels' message? And did you realize in that chapter 14, it was talked about a lot in the Sabbath School Quarterly, the first 5 verses, the 144,000. Did you know the message is going to be repeated? And also that there's actually 5 angels with loud voices in Revelation 14, so the 4th and 5th angels. Nobody's, can understand those. The recent Review and Herald posted a article a couple weeks ago, but they have no idea how to identify what those are. So here it is on the street. So these are catching people's eyes. This is getting attention. So they're getting an opportunity to interact with the present truth, the extra oil, as it is on the street with the lined up along this barricade, this fence next to a parking area. So the setup is excellent. We'll go to the next slide here. Here's Sister Tanya standing out there pleasantly getting prepared. And as people go by, there's the poster in the backdrop of the one on the King of the North, the nation not desired, United States and the modern nation state of Israel, Middle East and prophecy. I mean, these are topics that Adventists are incapable of dealing with. They say, oh, it's not relevant. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let's look at the Bible. And honest people are realizing that the Bible says a whole lot about it. So here we are with the literature to help them, to feed them. And on the left here, Sister Tanya is sharing literature. These two ladies here, and one of them's opening it up, and they're obviously curious, well, what is this, where this is coming from? And I'm like, the appeal is, well, investigate. Truth has no fear to come into contact with error. So the appeal is to see, despise not prophesying, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. So it's an invitation, like Jesus called the disciples, come, see, find out. So excellent opportunity. So this is some of the scenes on the street. I want to tell you about, of course, naturally why this happens. The devil doesn't stand idly by. It arouses the suspicion or the angst of certain people, church leaders perhaps. And so they had a very interesting experience yesterday, Monday. Unfortunately, the video setup malfunctioned. We were hoping to capture this on video. I said, if it is again, make sure you have backups so that we can show video clips and ID the person. But what happened is I talked to the two brothers that had this interaction, is somebody came out and said, can you give me a summary of this message? Just the bullet points. I don't need long whatever. And I mean, that's quite a considerable task. I mean, those charts there's 18 of them. And we've had people do this before. Now, we have a track. I'm going to show it on the screen now. It's called Fundamental Beliefs of Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. That has a list of all the fundamental beliefs at that time in 1940s, which was 22 fundamental beliefs. Today we have 28. In addition to beliefs about this extra oil, about sealing 144,000, judgment for the living, events taking place around the Middle East or Palestine. So those, that's the bullet list summary. So if you here are not there but would like a copy of that track, Fundamental Beliefs, please contact us. I'll have the email and contact information at the end here. We'll be happy to send you an electronic version or a print copy. So one brother said, okay, well, I'll give you a 45-second, 1-minute summary of King of the North. So one of our trainings is you have to be able to give a people a study in 1 minute, 5 minutes, because people are passing by. They don't have time for a detailed systematic study. So give them a summary, give a couple high points. So the brother did. And then the man says, well, I want all the details, all the references. And I'm like, well, what's going to make him happy? Well, if that's what you want, here. And he was offered a copy of track number 12, The World Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, which is a verse-by-verse commentary on Daniel 11. And in particular, the key to unlock the successive rulers over the glorious land. That's the key. You've got to identify the glorious land. Adventist commentators, leaders, Walter Veith, Stephen Bohr, Doug Batcher, any of them, none of them can answer that because they don't have the key. And they're getting their theology from Lewis Ware. I talked about that in the last video, who's uninspired, okay? So if you want the inspired answer, here it is. So the invitation here, take this small publication and read it and pray over it and read it for yourself. So that is what we're doing. But it seems that the contradictors are just never quite satisfied. And then when you confront them with the evidence, then they want to jump to another topic. They never seem satisfied. And it kind of reminds you of the experience, I guess, perhaps that Jesus, in his day, he always had antagonists, scribes or Pharisees, asking him adroit questions or trap questions. And Jesus, in dealing with them, was very straightforward. He asked them. He went on the offense and said, well, how readest thou? Or asked them, they were the lawyers, cunning lawyers, tried to trap him. And don't think for a second today the same type of spirit isn't being manifest. And so part of the training here is to learn to identify what the person is, what their motives are, and how to deal with them in a Christian manner. And if they prove to be ungenuine, not serious, and diverting and maneuvering, then you just call them out, call sin by its right name, and confront them with the evidence and leaving them with no excuse. So that was a report of, and it was interesting. I said, oh man, I wish we could have got it on video, because we could have put the picture of the mugshot and somebody here could ID them. But we did find this much out. He said that he was working a booth in the exhibition area. Okay, so there's a lot of, from the universities to the ADRA to the Hope Channel, all the big ministries, the smaller ministries. So apparently he's in there. Maybe they'll go in and find him and ID the actual ministry. Now, another brother shared with me that there was a booth inside the exhibition area, a man claiming to be able to unlock the key to the King of the North in Daniel 11, especially verse 45. And he was really urgently promoting to go to churches and share his uninspired theology. Now, obviously, he got approval to be in there. He's not teaching the truth. So the truth is out here on the street, friends. But it is interesting. They will accommodate any private uninspired idea, but when it comes to the truth, no, you can't go inside and rent a booth in the exhibition area, but we can set up out on the street. So friends, I hope you found that interesting. A lot of activity. These brethren are so excited. The interactions, they have discussions with people and so forth, but this is just evidence that God is moving, his spirit is moving. Minds that would otherwise sleep or slumber are being agitated, and that's what we're told. The hornet's nest is being stirred because the Adventist church is in trouble. And the answer to all of these dilemma or these problems in the church is not going to be solved in the session. People are in there pleading and asking questions of the newly elected church leaders, and they're getting the runaround. And they realize that, that nothing's really going to change because of the illicit associations or confederacies with the United Nations and government organizations. I mean, these people in big pharma and all the institutions, I'm like, they're dug in. The ship, as David Gates says, is too big to turn around, and that's true. So God's going to have to sink the ship, if you will, and remove the ancient men, that's in Ezekiel 9, and then bring in a layman's movement, a purified, sanctified ministry. That's 144,000. So that, friends, is present truth. We need to study that, and here it is, knocking on the door of Laodicea to arouse them from their slumber, to partake of this extra oil that will awaken them and open their eyes and their ears to hear the truth. So we're excited to share this with you. We'll be reporting again, hopefully tomorrow or certainly the next day. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, check the link or the box up here for information. You can contact us by the email or call, text, or connect with us on WhatsApp at that number. We'll be happy to send you copies, electronic or print copies of any of this literature. We've had requests coming in. Somebody said, oh, I want all 75 pieces. Sure, brother. So I'll be responding to that. And since we publish around the world, wherever they're located, we'll be able to get them this latter rain message without cost or obligation. So until we meet again, may God richly bless you as you search for truth as for hidden treasure, and to cease ye from all men whose breath is in their nostrils. Until we meet again, Godspeed.